It's a beautiful morning and welcome to Captured by Women, your lovely show for Saturday. I'm Nanama and today I'm here with Abna and Susan. As usual, interesting topics lined up. I keep saying when we have relationships on the topics, I know everyone will be staying glued to their seats, even the men, because they want to hear what the women have to say. Today, first up on the spin, we're looking at a very interesting topic. Should a woman, a female species, support the male species at any point in their lives based on relationships, be it the woman is richer, poorer, so far as she's in the capacity to support the man, should she do so? Then on Big Bang 1, we'll delve into the ECG concession, which is very a dicey discussion, but we'll do that here on this show for you to also weigh in on it, whether the concession should be changed 51% against 25 years, 20 years. We'll talk about that. Then finally, we'll wrap it up with Ghanaian workers' attitudes. The president did hint that the attitudes of Ghanaians is rather poor and some light was shed on it. That is in hope that it will revamp the working attitude in Ghanaians. It does promise to be an interesting show. We are sponsored by Tinatet Herbal, producers of Tinatet Tomac Mixture and Vanicare, as well as Grand Rice Company Limited, producers of Leap tomato paste, which is good for all dishes. Tomato paste with no size. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, viewers. On the spin this morning, we are asking a very simple question. Should a woman financially support a man at any given time in a relationship?
I mean, men support women at any given time in a relationship.
Right.
So why can't the opposite also hold? I mean, if there's trust in the relationship, why not? I mean, if you believe in some aspiration of the man and believe you have the wherewithal to support him, why not? I mean, you must do it freely without expecting anything in return, so that you don't get disappointed. So, but I'm so I guess
you don't get disappointed.
I was going to say, Susan, if that kind of sponsorship has to be partial, then because if I'm giving my full sponsorship, it's imperative that I will expect some returns or something back. It's difficult. I mean, we're human. Most of the time, if someone is sponsoring, and I use the word, I mean, if you're supporting, that's different. But if you're sponsoring, then you're going the long haul, and that's giving it your all. So naturally, you would expect some returns. However, never say never. So I would say if you are in a good place, you know what you have. For me, if it's marriage, I would go sponsor. But if it's a relationship that's at the dating phase, you don't have a concrete, that's not to say in marriage you have a concrete assurance, but I'm coming from the Christian perspective. So I assume that once you enter into marriage, there's a covenant which you don't intend to break. So hopefully if it's a marriage you don't intend to break,
hopefully,
then
you added hopefully.
Yes,
I think the
hopefully,
operative word is
of course,
hopefully.
But you never know
you do not plan to enter divorce, then you can support, you can sponsor, knowing that you're in a mutual thing together. But if it's a relationship you're not sure how it's going to go, then definitely if I sponsor and he leaves, I'm going to be affected, heartbroken.
But if you're married and you sponsored and he left,
I will, but
yes,
like I'm saying, so I can't talk about the marriage that he would divorce, because as for that, it's not something I want to enter. It's not something I will attempt to sponsor in that case. But if it's one that I plan to go the long haul with, then most likely I can sponsor.
Okay, so here we are assuming then that, okay, so we're using the word sponsor here. And the sponsor, the word here means then that you, the person sponsoring, the sponsor, you are in a better position than the person who is the beneficiary.
Yes.
So that you are in a match, you have the financial means, and that's why you are doing that. So the man is, you know, relatively not in a good position.
Abby, well, I've seen some circumstances where it could be not really so. Let me give you a situation. The man was well-to-do, but at the point where maybe he wants to further his education, he doesn't have the financial capacity. Even though he's in a good job, he gets relatively good salaries, but maybe he's using his money to support other activities. So at the time he needs the money to make
Beneficial
this,
to the woman, I hope.
I'm just giving you a scenario, so I can't tell what the beneficiaries were doing. But so in that instance, the woman decides to pump money into your education, hoping that because she knows if you get it, then you'll be paid better, like your salary will be better. There'll be an upgrade, basically. So in that case, the woman was not really her gains were not too much, but she had saved enough to support this man or sponsor this man, as it were, all in hope of he upgrading it. So in that case, it's
so what happened at the end of that?
Oh, it worked out.
Okay.
I mean, they're in a good relationship, so that's difficult to.
The woman does not necessarily have to be richer.
Exactly.
Because the man could be going to school, or the man could say, I'm using my money to build a house.
Right.
So right now, for the family needs, etc., etc., you cater for it. So in some way, you could say you are sponsoring for the family's needs while he builds his house. And sometimes he builds his house.
Built
and then
our house.
And it begins.
Did you say his house?
His house. It becomes
Our
his house. No, I'm saying that in the case where it then becomes
there's that agreement.
his house.
Let me use my money for the capital expenditure, if you like, the capex.
Yes.
And then yours goes to the
consumables.
Exactly, the consumables. And then at the end of the day, the house that was being built, we all thought it was going to be our house, now turns into
my house.
That's where the problem is.
Exactly.
And that's a kind of experience lots of women have had, which is what is informing this topic. Should women sponsor men? I think really the stories out there, predominantly, most of the stories are not too good. I mean, of what's happened to women who've had to,
sponsor
men or...
But there are men also who have taken girls through school.
Oh, but they have to do that one.
It's a
natural...
So they've taken her through school.
It's a natural...
she's finished university. It's not natural. What do you mean it's natural?
It seems to be our culture. We seem to think it's the norm. The man will take care of the home, or the man will take care of the girl, the lady.
The man is the head
So
of
when
the home.
the woman steps out to do the converse, I mean, you've broken protocol.
Exactly.
No,
it's
but
different.
Yes, I'm saying
we are saying this in light of our culture.
I mean, there are a lot of stories of men who have taken girls through school, and she's come out and she's met a younger model and decides that, okay, this old version I don't like anymore, and men have been disappointed. But like you are saying, because it's the norm, men continue to do so.
Right.
So if you are a woman and it happens to you, you should take it as that, okay,
Susan,
it's
so
an
if your
experience.
daughter, I mean, your daughter comes to you and says, Mommy, I'm dating this man and he wants me to sponsor his education.
And I'll tell her the realities of life.
Right.
And I'll put it down and say, you know what? Unless you think that you can do it and walk off without a care in the world, without care, then go ahead. But if you think that you're going to do it and then you want to hold him to that and think that that should hold him to you, not because he cares about you or not because he loves you, but because you have sponsored it, he's holding on to you, then don't. Because you don't want somebody just to be with you because they think that they are beholden to you, because he doesn't love you, and it will show in many instances. He may be in the marriage with you, whatever, but he probably will show you that he doesn't love you. You understand? And I mean, marriage is for the long haul, so you don't want it to be that unhappy. And if a man is going to show you that he doesn't love you, that will be an unhappy marriage. So for me, it will. If my daughter came to me, I would lay the cards and I say, Auntie,
this is the real deal.
This is
life ahead.
Right.
Yes,
choose it.
And then there's other. There's also a situation where you have men, what we call the kept man or kept men, where they have older women financially support them, and in exchange of that, they also definitely have their benefits from having such men around them. I think that one is very much, there's nothing, no commitment there. Exactly.
Yeah.
That is
There's a commitment. If you go for a younger lady, you think she'll be amused.
I don't think so. I think she's fine,
usually
so far you're there to do whatever it is.
If it's an older woman who does that to a younger man, then most likely she's coming from the place where she sees him as a son, in quotes. Otherwise, if I don't see you as a son and I see you as a sugar boy, then definitely there'll be exchange of whatever. So they're both benefiting. So it's synergistic.
And I want
It's not,
you could be a toy boy where
parasitic.
it's not exclusive rights. So you are free to go, and that means I'm also free to do as the. But if you are a toy boy and I say that, Charlie, I want exclusive rights, I won't be happy if you went somewhere else.
Very well. Anyway, as usual, relationships always get excited. So we're discussing whether an older woman should, or a woman should sponsor a man in a relationship, and how far can they go with that. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, lovely viewers. So we are delving into Big Bang 1, and we have the big topic there. We're discussing the ECG concession. The president did make some delivery concerning this concession that his government plans to look at the agreement that was entered into. We have in studio to discuss this interesting topic Honorable John Jinapor. He is the former Deputy Power Minister, and we also have here Mr. Michael Edumata Nyantakyi. He is the General Secretary of the Public Utility Workers Union. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So before we delve into this topic, we'd like to take the voice clip from the President and listen to exactly what he said on May Day.
That we are taking a second look at the ECG Compact. We're driven by two considerations. We are as concerned as the workers that the reforms should not lead to involuntary job losses, and we should find a long-term solution to the nation's electricity problems. In this regard, government has amended the terms of the concession agreement to require that, 1, Ghanaians own at least 51% of the concession. 2, there should be no involuntary layoffs as a result of the concession. 3, the term of the concession will be reduced from 25 to 20 years. We believe that these amendments meet the aspiration of Ghanaians in protecting the jobs of workers and in assuring the control and viability of ECG.
Very well. So we heard the President giving his address there. Mr. Nyantakyi, the POO has applauded the President's initiative to look into the agreements again. And thereafter, what has been your concern?
Yeah, thank you, and greetings to your listeners. Yes, applauded, on quotes, to the fact that we have always been calling for a review of the whole transaction concerning this concession. So when we heard the news that government is taking some steps or had taken some initiative to review some aspects of the concession agreement, then we felt it was a step in the right direction. But we did indicate that as at now, we will not say that we are applauding or really praising. We are recognizing that it's a positive step, but we don't know what details surrounding the announcement that the President made. So until we've seen what is put down on paper, what has been agreed, and it's always an agreement because the compact is between Ghana and MCC, and then you have MCC also there. So until we've seen what is really agreed upon and the details surrounding this new announcement that the government has made, I don't think we are really home and dry yet.
Very well. But as a union, your main issue was with, to tackle the layoffs that were likely to be. But the President has hinted that these involuntary they don't plan to make involuntary layoffs as it is. I understand that you want to see it cast in stone before you make a comment to that, but I'll be interested to know what the union is thinking about that as of now. Are you happy with that move?
That has always been one of the assumptions we've tried several times to explain to Ghanaians, that this whole issue and the agitation we are raising is not just about the question of job security. And many people have tended to reduce it to, workers of ECG are afraid of losing their jobs. If you have ever taken a time to look at the position paper that we put up since 2014 to date, we listed a number of issues that we think need to be looked at. The aspect of job loss is only one among about 8 or 7 other variables that we thought would not go in the interest of Ghana and Ghanaians. So it's not just the question of job security. And we've always been stressing, ECG is not like any company you just get up, walk to the street and just pick people, come and start working. For now, ECG is over 6,000 workers. Any company that comes to take over, you will need to really do a serious capacity assessment of the staff, even if you want to reduce. And sometimes people just look at, oh, the company is this and the number is this, so you conclude. But you don't compare the coverage where ECG network covers and the number of staff together with logistics and the environment that we are working in. You go to some advanced countries, if there is a fault somewhere, at the press of a button, or just taking a railway or something, within 20-30 minutes, you are there where the fault is. But there will be a fault here, and staff will have to travel over 2-3 hours before they will get to the site and to start working even on the fault. So there are a lot of variables Ghanaians need to understand.
As internal stakeholders, have you been asked to sit at the table when these the review is going on?
Concerning the announcement we had yesterday.
I mean, you know, they said you wanted the review, and the review is going to go on, or is happening. But you are internal stakeholders. You have you have a stake in it. Have you been invited to the table?
Maybe after the fact. The president announced this on May Day, and before that, you will all recall during the State of the Nation address, the president stated that, oh, we have looked at the compact. There are certain areas we think that there is the need for a dialogue between Labour, ECG, and MIDA. So he was urgently calling for that dialogue. So we were very expectant, hoping that very soon we'll be called to sit around and discuss or look at other areas of concern. That kind of dialogue hasn't taken place. It's only after this announcement and when we started also voicing out the fact that we think that we have not been treated fairly and the whole process doesn't appear very transparent, that we are beginning to see some positive engagement. Yesterday, yes, there was some form of engagement, and we have received also additional invitations to some further discussions.
Very well, we could move on to, I mean, we'll definitely talk about the consultation side of the issue, but let's bring in Honorable Jinapor at this point. Honorable, this is a proposed review or a proposed amendment to an agreement that was negotiated by the NDC. What do you make of these proposals, the 51% ownership at least by Ghanaians, reducing it from 25 to 20 years, the concession and all that? What do you make of it?
Well, let me thank you. First of all, the fact that you call something an agreement, and I'm sure my brother would, is that it's an understanding between two or more parties.
Right.
And so when the president says that government has reviewed the agreement, I asked the first question. I reviewed the agreement unilaterally with MCC or with who? Because an agreement is an understanding, a meeting of minds between two or more parties. So I thought that there ought to be some level of clarity. Number two, during our time, I recall Comrade Nko raised very, very germane, serious issues. That led to the president himself ordering a cessation of the process, halting the process, getting the chief of staff to chair all the meetings involving the various stakeholders so we can build consensus. I do recall I chaired several meetings with them. Aruna Idrisu chaired several meetings, Honorable Tepe, Honorable Comrade Nko. And so it's not as if there hasn't been engagement especially during our time. We've had series of engagement.
But you are looking at reaching
normal.
A consensus.
Yes.
Were you able to reach any consensus at all?
No, we did not end the process when we lost the election. They had raised very serious issues. And as he said, it did not just touch on job security, but even the core of the concession itself. And they had alternatives that we thought we should take a second look at and discuss that. And so that is how I intend situating it. What the president said, on the surface of it, might sound very palatable, but I think that we need to get to the details of it. Because we've gone through a certain stage. We've gone past the RFQ, we've gone past so many other stages, and we are at the RFP stage. We've gone through the PIA and all those other stages. So if you are changing the agreement substantially, because all those companies that put in their initial bid based on a certain shareholding structure. Right. Now, if you are changing the shareholding structure such that the new co or new company that will manage the concession would own a minority stake, it goes to conclude that when you have a minority stake, you would normally not determine management. So if Ghanaians are having the majority stake, would Ghanaians determine the management structure? Would the new company be willing to invest the $250 million
and maintain that same management?
Have the Americans even agreed to this proposal? Because we are also privy to certain information. And so it's only proper, it's only fair that even before the announcement, government engaged Pool and at least gave them a head start that this is where we are arriving before the announcement. But as I said, they heard it on the parade. Be that as it may, I believe that there's more room for engagement. There's more room for clarity, for certainty, so that we understand basically what we are doing. Is this still a concession, or now we are moving to partial privatization where we are selling 49% and keeping 51%? I think that we deserve to know the details, so that when we are engaging, when we are discussing these issues, we'll be doing so from a well-informed point of view. I wouldn't fault the president when he makes an announcement, and during our time it's normal. The president will make an announcement, but immediately the ministers who are the lieutenants ought to follow up and begin to give clarity, begin to explain. But unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing.
Still on the clarity issue, yes, perhaps this may be something that the government is going to go forward to renegotiate, but as they've presented it, these 4, if you like, changes being proposed, you talk about specifics. What are the specifics you're looking for in respect of this?
Well, as I said,
what else do you need to know?
As I said, if you say 51% will go to Ghanaians, it's omnibus. It's a bit ambiguous. You must get to the detail of it. And when I was talking, I realized that Comrade was nodding, because we have 2 options, either a concession or partial privatization. Partial privatization means you sell some stake. It means that you are divulging of your ownership in terms of the shares. So you could decide that you are selling 49 and keeping 51. If you are going for a concession, it's more or less a management contract. It means that you are keeping all the shares, you are keeping all the assets, but I'll give it to you. You have full access to the assets.
But with 51,
manage them.
Means then that they are ceding off.
No, because we adopted the concession as the option, as a government. He did not say that government has changed position in respect of the concession. The president didn't talk about concession. But that's why I'm saying that it's ambiguous. And I think that there should be much more clarity, so that we understand what he means by that. And his operative word was that they have reviewed, government has decided to change. And I find that...
That's what I'm saying, perhaps this is what they're taking to the renegotiating table. So this
he
is
did
what
not say that.
No, we are all reading meaning into it. You're assuming this is what he may have meant, or this is what he's saying by inference. So we can also infer that this is what they have planned to take to the table if they go forward to renegotiate.
That government throws and shares light on this subject matter. When the president speaks, he has 4 ministers of communication, information, and deputies. Combined, 4. 4 ministers in charge of energy. So we have 8 ministers and deputy ministers who can deal with this issue. What are they doing?
Honorable, just for clarity's sake, or to help us, so that when they come back to talk about this, we can look out for the answers we want. If you were in their position now, what kind of things are you going to communicate to help us understand exactly what the 51%, 49% agreement, or the involuntary layoffs, or you know, we need that clarity.
We took a position, for instance, let me just quickly, because of time.
Yes. Please do.
Employee security. We went to cabinet, took a position that for the first 5 years, you cannot lay workers off.
Very well.
We did so based on our research, which indicated that in 5 years' time, resignation, normal attrition, and all that would have leveled out. And so the understanding was that no job losses. But we insisted that 5 years. The president said that they've changed it and there will be no job losses.
Right from
No job losses for how long? For what period?
But is that
We don't know.
ambiguous?
It
You
is
have
for
a
me.
fixed term. He's saying it's being reduced from 25 to 20.
Yes.
And within that period, no
Did
layoffs.
he say that within
but
that 20 years, no layoffs?
I believe, really, this is
Fine.
not... Is it ambiguous,
so
really?
that
Well,
is one.
it
Is
is
it
ambiguous.
ambiguous?
I mean,
No
because
layoffs.
No layoffs means
No,
forever.
eventually.
Yeah.
Really,
I mean, that's how I would take it. I don't
Okay,
see...
so-
Because there was no
Well,
clause
I mean,
attached to
yeah.
it, so the easier way to take
well,
would be to
I mean,
assume that it's for the whole.
I suppose
or-
maybe. So
But
you take it
can
that.
I, add, you were asking for some clarity
Yes,
about,
specifics.
yes, the previous government has selected concession. We took a position that concession is not the best option for this country.
And you have the view that privatization too is not also the best.
As for that one, that's the general.
That was
decision.
a no at all.
That's a no-no.
And those were the two
No,
we
So the
had.
concession was probably
private-
the
We had two.
compromise.
They
No.
came up with another option.
Privatization is a broad term. You can talk about privatization with respect to ownership or privatization with respect to control.
Yeah.
Now you can have a joint venture arrangement which may not affect ownership, but then you can come to a position that now this is the company X. Okay, me and Honorable, we have agreed to join and run this company X. The company belongs to me. Honorable may have some very fat
Resources.
account sitting somewhere. So bring your money to come and add to what I am doing.
Right.
We agree on some modalities. When it comes to the profit sharing, this is how the ratio is going to be.
Without taking shares.
Without taking shares.
So would there be preference shares?
No,
So we're
not-
governed by
it's-
company
it's
law.
not. It's not.
So what would
ownership.
you term
It's
that?
not share. It's not sharing
So
agreement.
what would that be?
A joint venture agreement based on
But they're not
some.
taking shares, yes.
Yeah.
You are not.
Bringing in...
You are not touching ownership.
Yeah.
You are
just
bringing
your-
some expertise or some
Or
resources,
resources.
as your input to help, so we can define that. That is an one
One
alternative. We haven't been made clear whether that is what government is
planning
doing.
to do.
A joint venture is an alternative. It could be a partnership. That is also another alternative. We have still not been made clear. That is what government is talking about. What the other alternative which IFC placed before the previous government was either a partial privatization or concession.
Right.
With partial privatization, this news the president gave may fall very well within. We are divesting part
Selling part of the company
of the company's asset or shareholding to some stakeholders. Government will still retain the 51%.
of it.
But all these are not made clear whether we are going back to partial privatization
Right.
or a new model altogether is what is being conceived. But if we followed up, last week there was the news item, I think in the graphic. This statement the president made did not just come out because we read that the vice president was in the United States and on the size of the spring meeting, they have met with the MCC and have come to this kind of some discussions, and this is what we are being
There's
informed.
a contradiction there.
But as to what
Conrad.
this is a concluded agreement between Ghana government or between MCC and MIDA and all those things.
We don't know.
These are the details we are asking for,
Very well.
so that we'll be informed.
Honorable-
and
Honorable
know the
mentioned
There's
that-
a confusion there
yes, tell us
because
what that
MIDA,
is.
yesterday, MIDA. And MIDA is the mandated authority
Right.
to implement the compacts. MIDA has ministers of Ghana serving on that board. MIDA insists that in 2 weeks' time or so, they are going ahead and proceeding with the RFP. The RFP is the request for proposal. The RFP follows up on the RFQ, which is the request for qualification. All this is structured on the basis of a concession,
Right.
not partial privatization. So if even after the president's statement,
right,
MEDA insists that, look, we are proceeding with the RFP under the concession agreement.
Right.
There is a lot of confusion there for me. And I think that it's important that we clear these issues and get it right for the people of Ghana to appreciate where we are going. When you are a leader, you carry your people along. You don't create doubts in our mind. The General Secretary of no less an entity or body like POO himself is asking questions. What prevented government from engaging POO and saying that these are decisions? POO seeks clarification before the president proceeds to announce, so that all of us are in tandem with what we are doing, so that we don't create all this ambiguity and confusion in our minds.
No, but if the president has planned or the government has planned to roll out a certain agreement, in as much as they will engage certain stakeholders, this may be, we really don't know at which point this renegotiation has even reached. This may only be him telling government or telling Ghanaians what they plan to do. So, I mean, putting him to say he hasn't engaged POO may be falling short of what the reality may be, because eventually they may have some plans to bring everyone back to the table to discuss everything that will go into this renegotiation. But that may be what they think may be helpful.
I've given you a chronology of events. Governance is a continuum.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Whether MPP or NDC, Obama is no more.
So would you want them to... Exactly. But you met with POO before we got to this,
if I may
didn't
quickly
we?
land. So we suspended the process, constituted a team, all the stakeholders, and said, let's engage to come to a consensus.
Right.
We all agreed. Now, one party loses, so government continues. I handed over the handing over news. And in it, I stated where we've reached and where we are. So I'm saying that all government needed to do was to continue with the engagement.
Right.
So that if you arrive at a decision, or you have a proposal, or you have some intent, discuss that at the negotiating table before you go public. You don't catch the other party off guard, only for the party to hear that this is what I intend doing at a public gathering, and now they are beginning to ask questions. What is happening with that continuous engagement and continuous process that we began? Can't we continue with that? We are not saying that go with our position. We are just saying that do not halt the vehicle. Let that vehicle continue in this trajectory, and then take the decisions you want to take.
Honorable, sorry, just a quick one. Before this, I mean, isn't there a timeline to this?
There is, and that is even why certainty and clarity ought to come to bear. Because if we miss those timelines, the whole compact comes crashing. There are timelines. If we do, already we are behind. Even during our time, we're behind because of the concerns they raised. But the president said whether we are behind or not, we must address those issues. I'm directing Chief of Staff, chair the meetings, and get results for me.
Very well. Now, you mentioned, Mr. Idumata, you mentioned that POO's position paper actually talked about 8 critical areas of concern. I mean, not just the issue about job security, it goes on and on and on. So tell us, what exactly would POO want to see under this Compact 2 arrangement?
All right. You see, we are going through a reform process. Unfortunately, we see this reform process as something being imposed. We have always used that word, that it is an imposition on us as Ghanaians. If we had followed our own plan as a nation, if you go back to the records at the ministry, as far back as 1995, we have the Power Sector Reform Project, which has certain key milestones. And one of the things which were supposed to have been done somewhere around 1999, which also got halted because of a change of government just like this, was the Strategic Business Unit concept. ECG was supposed to be divided into operational areas. It was to be about 4 or 5 of them, grouping the viable ones with the less viable areas. So you had the Accra, Tema, and then Volta region, plus Eastern region. Then you have Ashanti, you have Western and Central. So that let these operate as separate entities, although within the same group, and then see whether by the concept of our district assembly, by devolution of authority and these things, you will not be able to bring certain transformations. This was truncated, it wasn't followed through. Then this compact comes in. The American says, we are giving you this money. Ghana, we need money. Quickly, we accept the compact. The condition attached. If you are accepting this compact, then private sector participation is non-negotiable. It's a condition precedent. So fine, we are ready to do that. And then we are trying to define how the private sector participation should be. But the key point that we needed to look at is, what can we do to make ECG functional so that if we see the whole energy sector as the core area or as the bottleneck, as the constraint analysis they did was trying to portray, then let's address what is making ECG not effective, and not necessarily thinking that the solution is just by bringing in private sector participation.
But you still haven't told me what you want to say.
I'm coming. So
we need to, I mean, we're running out of time, literally. We need to wrap up.
So we think that if we want to solve the problem, let's look at it holistically. It's not this knee-jerk approach we are going through this compact. We should address the issues making ECG not very efficient. And there are a number of alternatives which we propose. Some of them we've already mentioned. We thought that one of the areas, if you want to address and make ECG very functional, is the question of government interference and leadership. You constantly get ECG managing directors being changed. If we address that one, we can solve one of the problems.
We definitely have to get you back here to talk about
do. We'd like to thank Honorable John Gina Paul and Mr. Michael Edum-Attah Nyantakyi of POO for joining us to discuss the ECG concession. We hope government has heard our issues, our concerns, and will bring some clarity to the issue. We'll take a quick break. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Back. On May Day, the President made a speech on workers' attitude towards work. Let's take a clip and listen to him again.
Everything comes to a stop when it rains, and we seem to expect the rest of the world also to stop. We have no respect for the hours set aside for work. We pray, we eat, we visit during working hours. We spend hours chatting on the telephone when customers are waiting to be served, thereby increasing our labor costs. We take a week off for every funeral, and then we wonder why we are not competitive. The service that we provide in our hospitality industry does not match that of our competitors, and many of us have sadly come around to accept poor service as the norm. There is a particularly pernicious attitude to property that we find at work. There's the petty stealing of paper, envelopes, tea, milk, and other equipment. There's the reckless use of office vehicles. Employees show no inclination to protect the things that are in the offices and factories, and extreme reluctance to stand up for what we know to be right in our workplaces in general.
On this one, I think the President was spot on.
Like, bam.
Yeah, I mean, he said it as it is. But leadership is important. Yeah. So apart from, he's identified the problem and he knows what the problem is. Which we already know. And we are, yes. But what are we going to do about it?
That's the question.
And so what kind of leadership do we expect, you know, to change that attitude?
Definitely. Again, for me, I think, like I keep saying, behavior is shaped by rewards and punishment. So, in a workplace, for instance, you have your job cut out for you. You have your job description. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. These are your targets, so and so. What happens when you don't meet your target?
Right.
Nothing. I mean,
exactly.
in our
so
civil
then
service,
it would
nothing happens to
reinforce
you.
that. And especially where, you see, there's a certain culture where people who demonstrate that they are able to deliver tend to have their workload, you know, constantly increased. Because, oh, Susan, she would do it. So if, you know, somebody else is not doing it, pass it on to Susan. Forgetting that Susan is doing it on top of what she has to do herself, yet her remuneration remains the same.
Exactly.
So our work ethics in Ghana definitely is terrible. It is terrible. But what's interesting for me too is the fact that the president talked about petty stealing. Stealing supplies here and there. It could be stationery, it could be something else. I mean, toiletries, people just taking it and thinking, okay, this is where I work. And so like the saying, you know, there's a saying in Tree, I mean, like, that kind of thing. And so I think it's so bad. And like you said, the president couldn't have said it any better. He just said it, but the question is, how do we get out of that mentality? Because I think it's so much ingrained in us, it would take a lifetime for this to change. Well, I mean, but perhaps leadership would do.
I mean, people ought to be punished. And people ought not to have security of tenure, you know. And I think that is one of the things that make civil servants do as they please. I mean, hey, at the end of the month, he'll be paid whether he does it or not.
Anyways, yes. It's just not right. And talking about, you know, instituting mechanisms like you have key performance indicators, you have regular meetings with your supervisors, and this happens in the private sector. I mean, the private sector can definitely show that indeed we have these KPIs we're working with, but for the public sector, and of course, we cannot not talk about the public sector because what was it exactly? The president in his State of the Nation address talked about the fact that about 99%, is it 96% or so?
Yes, I think it's close to 96, 97. One
goes into paying salaries and other things, you know, amortization of debt and all of that. But the majority is going towards wages and salaries. And then you're asking the question, what are we putting back into the system? Nothing. It's just not right. I mean, something has got to change, really.
Definitely, Abby. And like you said, the attitude. If I find it that if you decide to change something somewhere, you always face resistance. But if you persistently or constantly do it, eventually it may become a lifestyle of others around you. And I realize in Ghana, the reason why people will want to pull you down, as it may, is because they actually envy what you do, but they haven't develop that skill to be able to do it the way you do it. And instead of learning how you do it and get around it, they tend to, oh, Susan will do the work. She's, you know, trying to find favor with the leader or whatever. But that aside, my problem is if people, these same people, when you find them at their own jobs, enterprises they run that are private for themselves, they are totally different. So for me, it translates that then because you think the public service is for someone, you don't care. Because these people own shops, you know, I mean, these big places, and they run it completely. They are on time there. They make sure if it's weekends, they are going to spend their time, they are there, and they make sure the people who work under them also report. So you wonder why they don't do the same in their public service.
Because they get away with it.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
You know, they do get away with it. But when it's yours, you know your pocket will suffer for it. So you go the extra mile. So I think it's just about knowing that public service is to yourself, I mean, indirectly, because when the economy grows, you benefit. When everything is going well, it's to your benefit as a nation. I mean, so we should all put our best into it. It may sound strange or far-fetched.
Governance is a long term.
Exactly.
I agree with the short-term punishment.
Right.
I mean, people, you know, I know that in Kufuor's time there was the Public Sector Reform Ministry. Maybe, you know, we should go back to that. They started introducing time in logging in, everything, and they thought.
But even that, people found a way around it.
But we ought to find ways and means of ensuring that people log in and you know, appropriately, and when they are leaving, you know, because it has worked in certain places, and I think that our problem is that you know, leadership must show the will to punish people.
Exactly.
If you are afraid to punish people and want to be popular all the time,
They
that
would
is
take
what that
advantage.
would happen.
all come
Again,
You
for
know.
monitoring, for me, again, with the leadership, my problem with them is monitoring and evaluation. I mean, if your leader is not coming to work or doesn't really know, like Abby said, the target you have to meet, then how are they even going to, as it were, monitor you? The only thing you say is, oh, you are supposed to print this letter, have you done it? And then he says, I've done it, and that's fine. But that's not enough. You have to put in place certain checks and balances as the leader. The onus lies on you to do that. And when we start punishing the leaders, then maybe they also will sit up and make sure the subordinates
Right.
also work, you know,
there'll be
because
a
they
trickle-down
definitely
effect.
usually go scot-free. Yes. I mean, if your boss, he's the boss, how do you go and tell him to do this? But maybe if government starts putting the bosses in check, then subordinates will also fall in line. I mean, they wouldn't have an option because they know that my boss expects A, B, C, D of me, because if he doesn't get that target, you know, he'll be sacked. Likewise, I have to respond, you know, in like manner. So because people ask questions, are Ghanaians really lazy? For me, I don't think we're lazy at all.
It's a system that makes us
Exactly,
that
lazy.
way because we can
because
get
they
away
find
with
out
it.
it's
That's
okay.
what
I
it
mean,
is.
when you do it, you're not punished. So
Exactly.
we can always go scot-free
Yeah.
with doing.
And
well,
another thing we're discussing has to do with the fact that, you know, the system is so monetized now. People are so driven by money as opposed to getting the job done. So that, for instance, the public sector, I mean, I work with, my job requires me to do a lot of, you know, interactions or engagements with state agencies, quite a number of them. And you get the sense that people always want money to do what they are
They're going to
already
be
paid
paid
for.
for.
And they don't even do it on top of everything. You understand? So it's just mind-boggling what's happening.
But,
I mean, there's going to be an implosion. Seriously.
Well, I mean, the president talked about the petty stealing, but he forgot the big stealing, where, you know, you go with a contract of 20,000,
Enough to give.
and then the civil servants, they say, make the contract 10,000, where theirs is the 10,000, you know, or they will tell you, even make the contract 40,000, and they are taking, you know, and they will take their share, whether they like you have
like
been paid or
not.
not, you know. I mean, that kind of, and then there's the other one where, in my ministry where I work, it's very common. The workshops upon workshops, the workshops upon workshops. I mean, every day is a workshop. You know, I mean, somebody is moving from workshop to workshop, and you wonder whether they ever put that training to use, because
Exactly, because nobody is assessing how impactful
they just need
the
you to fill
training
in
is to their
book.
work. Exactly.
And then they move
they
on
take
to the
whatever
next
money to
workshop.
come with it.
They go to 3 workshops in a day. That is work for them, and they never have the time to put in that training anyway because they are attending another workshop. I mean, it's the
outrageous,
pits,
yeah.
really. Public sector reform is
Has to
badly needed. I mean,
Totally needed.
You know, and so I think that the president should not just do the talk; he should do the work. I mean, we ought to see the change that we voted for.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
especially in our public sector.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on, but we definitely need to bring conversations to a close. This is where we draw the curtains on Captured by Women this morning. Indeed, it's been fun. We've looked at a number of issues. We started off looking at whether or not women are to financially support a man or men at any time, whether a wealthy older woman sponsoring a younger man, or whatever situation we are asking, should women, or we asked, should women ever financially support a man? But that's another topic for discussion. I'm sure we could discuss that way over and over again. But we also looked at the ECG concession and matters arising from there. The president at the May Day celebration indeed made mention that there had been some changes to the concession agreement, and we discussed that with the PUWU representative and the former Deputy Minister of Power, Mr. Jinapor. We also lastly touched on attitude to work, which is another thing that the president spoke about at his May Day address. We hope that indeed there comes a point in time where our attitude towards work would improve, and then will be productivity, and at the end of the day, it will be improvement for the whole country. This is Captured by Women. We've come your way by the courtesy of Grand Rice Company Limited, producers of Leap Tomato Paste, and Tinatet Herbal, producers of Tinatet Tomac Mixture and Venicare. We'll be back your way, same time, same place next week. Until then, my name is Abna Tebi. I've done this with Susan and Nanama. Have yourself a good weekend. Bye-bye.